Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. This is a continuation of the series of talks on the Dharma. Without spending too much time looking back on what we've covered so far, the topic of the previous talks was about the first and the second turnings of the wheel of Dharma, the first and the second phases of the Buddha's teaching. Today we go on to the third and final phase. And in that third and final phase, the Buddha teaches us about the topic called Buddha nature, the Buddha within, our true nature, the nature of our mind. In those three turnings of the wheel of Dharma, really what we have is that the first two are there, amongst other things, to get rid of all of our possible illusions and delusions. In the first turning, by showing us the illusion of ego, of self, that we construct artificially. The Buddha gives us the means to understand ourselves and to put an end to our suffering and to the causes of suffering. That's the main point of the first turning. Ego, the illusion or the voidness of ego. In the second turning, as we know, then the Buddha went on to show the voidness of all things, to show the difference between what we think of as something or somebody or the world, our idea, the difference between the idea and whatever is really there. Our ideas of time and space, of beginnings and ends, of so many things, abstract concepts, and our ideas of things, dhammas, phenomena. And also in the second turning, the Buddha teaches the bodhisattva path of great compassion and the 6 paramitas. And then comes this third turning, where the Buddha tells us not about the voidness of illusions, how those illusions are wrong, misleading, the cause of all the trouble, but he tells us the truth of the matter, about our true nature, Buddha nature. This had to come last, because if not, if from the outset the Buddha had told us about our Buddha nature, we would have brought all of that baggage of mistakes and projections that's our habitual thinking to what he was showing us, telling us, teaching us. We would have turned it into just another sort of ego, another sort of frozen projection, limited projection of something. So it was very necessary that the Buddha, as he was teaching his disciples, brought them to that maturity where their mind was so clearly aware of all the ways that we can lose the truth through illusions. Our mind becomes wrapped up in its fixed ideas, in its assumptions and projections. His disciples needed to be freed from that by understanding how delusion works. And then their minds would be ready for him to show them the real truth. And they could rest with that truth, stay with it, without spoiling it with projections. This is very important because, with a bit of luck in our lives, our great teachers will point out the nature of our mind through empowerments, through pointing out moments in public, in private. We will have this opportunity to discover what we really are. And it's very important that if we have that precious gift, we don't spoil it by bringing our baggage to it almost immediately and corrupting it. So it came at the end of the Buddha's teaching, the third phase, the last years of his life, through the teachings he gave in some 12, 15, 18 sutras, some more specifically, some in which some reference is made to it. Some almost 1,000 years after the Buddha, those teachings were beautifully gathered together by a Sangha, and his work on Buddha nature has become the reference for all of our Mahayana schools ever since. So, what is the main point? There, what we are being shown is that in truth we are Buddha. That every sentient being, every being with a mind, with consciousness, has as the essential nature of that mind, Buddha nature. All of the qualities of Buddha are there. It's not as though just now they're not there, we're some other sort of being, and that life after life after life we have to change, become this type of being, another type of being, and end up in the end in some heaven where we are Buddha and where those qualities are present. It's all there, right now, all the time, always has been, always will be. It is the core nature of you and me, the true nature of our mind. When the Buddha taught this, he didn't just use words. The Buddha was a presence more than anything else. He awakened people to that inner beauty, that most perfect peace, that infinite compassion, that omniscient wisdom. Everything that we've seen already is meant by the word Buddha. The three kayas, and so on. All of that is within us. So the first series of points that the Buddha makes about that are, first of all, that all sentient beings have it. Every single sentient being, from the worst off to the best off. The second point is that not only do all beings have that nature, but that they have it the same. There is no difference in male or female, in different races and colours, in different castes of society, where there are castes in society. It is the same in a flea, a dog, a human being, a deva. In the Karmapa, in you and me, in the Dalai Lama, we all have the same, exactly the same Buddha nature. That's the second point. We all have the same Buddha nature. And the third point is that this gives us potential. Because although we all have that nature, and in that nature all of the qualities are present, everything that's a Buddha is already there. But there's a but. The thing is that until it is realized, in the sense of that word, made real, realized, understood, and then made totally real, made present all the time, recognized in every instant, until then we are not Buddhas. And this is where a lot of people get it wrong. When they hear that we all have Buddha nature, they think it means we are all Buddhas. It's because they don't know the teachings. It means that we all have the potential. It's all there inside all of us, but in most beings it's not recognized at all. In some it is just recognized, in some it is recognized or made real quite a lot. In the bodhisattvas it's very present. And then if we go on a sliding scale up to 100%, when there is nothing but that left, and all of the delusions and karma and other things that were stopping it from being what it can be are taken away. Until that time, then we are not Buddha. We are not fully enlightened. So although we have the Buddha nature, which is our potential, and although within us we have already hidden, covered up, not yet activated, all of the Buddha wisdom and compassion, all of that beauty, millions of qualities, until we can realize it, then even though it's there, it's not doing very much. So the whole point is recognition. The difference between the various beings in terms of enlightenment is how much it is recognized or not, because we all have the same Buddha nature, no difference. So there's a difference of whether it's recognized or not, how much it's covered up or not. And in the teachings we have many, many metaphors for this. One of them is that of a treasure that's buried underground. It's a very, very touching image. It's a man who's living in poverty, in a hovel, having difficulty surviving, and he doesn't know that buried underground, under his hut, is a magnificent treasure. So the treasure's there all the time. But first he has to know it's there. And then, even if he knows it's there, he still has to dig and dig until he finds it. And then he has to learn how to spend it, make full use of it. It's there. But the fact of it being there doesn't necessarily mean he's not poor anymore. Until he knows about it, works on it, uses it to the full, then he remains in relative poverty. If we used a modern example, when you buy a new computer, you have everything that's there inside the chip, inside these little bits of electronics. The capacity to make hundreds, thousands of images, films, information, an operating system, software, hardware. But first you have to plug it in, switch it on, activate it, learn how to use it. If ever you've gone through the learning curve of using computers, you'll know that even though all of those things are there, it takes a while before you can really get the maximum benefit from everything that is there. The third turning teachings about this Buddha nature show that it is the true nature of our mind. And another point they make is that it is the eternal, changeless nature, very different from what covers it up, very different from what makes it not recognized, not realized. What covers it up is always changing, totally impermanent, changing every moment, every second, and non-stop. It's called consciousness. Everyday consciousness, the 8 consciousnesses, the 5 senses, mind consciousness, and so on. This uninterrupted stream of consciousness, which changes all the time, covers it up. That stream of consciousness is like dreams, like hallucinations, like hypnosis, totally occupying the mind, yet not real. It's all of the delusions pointed out in the second turning of the Buddha's teachings. That has an ever-changing, so impermanent, an illusory nature. It covers up the Buddha nature, which is not deluded, which is the timeless, changeless truth. The changeless nature. When we discover or we hear that we are Buddha within, then of course it doesn't mean that you have a little Indian guy somewhere lurking inside you. We have to understand the three kayas, the real meaning of Buddha. We say your Buddha nature is the true nature of your mind. It means that Dharmakaya, voidness, every moment of your mind, the truth is voidness. Yet voidness doesn't just mean nothing at all, a big blank. There is manifestation, and that manifestation, when it's seen purely, is Sambhogakaya. The pure seeing of it is Sambhogakaya, and the actual manifestation, Nirmanakaya. It's a very, very, very deep topic. But that's how we need to come to understand this Buddha nature. Now, those Buddha nature teachings form part of Mahayana Buddhism and the Mahayana path, the path of the Bodhisattva. And when we study in detail the stages of the path, then we see how step by step that Buddha nature is uncovered, and that as each layer of covering is removed from it, so various qualities come out naturally, those qualities that are naturally there. We see the Dharma is in fact simply a process of stripping away temporary illusions so that natural truth can shine. That's what happens in the Bodhisattva path. But there's another important aspect to these Buddha nature teachings, and that is that they form the basis for Vajrayana Buddhism. And in Vajrayana Buddhism, the idea of a path. So in the Vajrayana aspect of Dharma, the idea of path changes. We take away the idea stretched out through time that Buddha is for the future. And we recognize the Buddha's message of Buddha nature teachings, that you are Buddha right now. That Buddha nature is there every moment, the true nature. And the Vajrayana methods, visualizing deities and so on, give us a means to temporarily and totally suspend our habitual reality. And we can identify 100% with the Buddha that we really are. Buddha is compassion. So in Vajrayana practice, we can identify totally with that by becoming Chinrezig. Buddha is the total solution to all of the ills. We can identify with that by becoming the medicine Buddha. So in Vajrayana Buddhism, we recognize that not only are we Buddha right now, but that Buddha means the ability of the Dharmakaya void mind to manifest the Sambhogakaya pure lands of all the various aspects of that Buddha mind to bodhisattvas, and from there, from the Sambhogakaya, to manifest the Nirmanakaya to ordinary sentient beings. So in Vajrayana we become the three kayas, and as it's a training we have to learn how to become the three kayas. But the very basis for all Vajrayana practice is the teaching of the Buddha on this Buddha nature that we are, and its intimate connection with those three kayas. Apart from the visualization practices of Tantra, what is called the path of skillful means, we have what's called the path of liberation of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, where without putting the beautiful face of Chinrezig or Tara or Amitabha or any of the other Buddhas on our knowledge, we learn how, by working with mind itself through shamatha, through vipassana, through stilling the mind, and then through a very special training in insight into the mind, to recognize the Buddha nature of mind, and to recognize the simultaneous presence of those three kayas in every moment of our waking life, our dream life, the dying process, death itself, and after death, in all of the various situations that we call the six bardos. That Buddha mind is the one and the only truth. In fact, there never has been, is not, and never will be any other truth than that. It is the most sublime, most wonderful, most hopeful, most true of all of the Buddha's teachings. When we study it properly, it takes a good month of intense study to cover a Sangha's text. What I can tell you today is something very simple. It's just in this series of talks about Dharma, and to show that these Buddha nature teachings tell us we all have the Buddha nature. It's the same in all of us. It's what gives us the remarkable potential of our human existence. That the Buddha inside means the three kayas, and that these Buddha nature teachings make sense of all of those Vajrayana practices. We are not, as in other religions that have deities and make offerings to those deities and so on, we are not relating to another being. We're not worshipping gods. We are relating to our very own true and pure nature. I do hope this series of talks on the Dharma has been of some help, and that it opens the doors to the more complete teachings on all of these topics. As ever, it's a great pleasure and a privilege for me to be part of your lives. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and that Dharma brings you many, many blessings. Thank you. Thank you.